Hey guys, I am Matt, and this is Making Games, my monthly video series about making video games. Let's start this month by talking about my Game Jam game, which I worked on for 2 to 3 days. It is called coMpANy, and it looks like this. coMpANy is kind of like a narrative-driven first-person game where you are an employee at a company, and that company is telling you to work diligently. Throughout the game, you kind of find that if maybe you break the rules a little bit, the story kind of progresses a little bit more and a little bit more until things get to a point where something switches in the game and everything seems a little different than what it was. So part of the fun of the game was actually creating this narrative-driven story that at some point the player gets to what I would call like a mini boss battle and then gets an ending piece that kind of is a cliffhanger. That's kind of interesting in terms of a jam game because not a lot of jam games are built to be story-driven experiences. There's been a lot of YouTube playthroughs where I've watched people actually kicking the ball into the bucket over and over and over, expecting something to happen while they're following the good path. But the point is that they're supposed to be trying to disobey this giant corporation that's got this creepy voice that's happening. I also took a lot of time before and after the Game Jam to work on my game Knock, which is my first-person pixelated horror adventure game. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that I put in this month. The biggest one that's behind the scenes is the inventory system has been pretty much overhauled from a code perspective. And the reason I did that is a lot of the inventory was pretty static previously. Obviously, the inventory shows the stuff that you've picked up throughout your travels through this game, but something that I've added that you can do now is combine different objects in your inventory to create a new item. This is very similar to something you'd see in the original Silent Hill or the original Resident Evil games. I've got some very, very early stuff just here thrown in the engine, so none of this is actually going to be used in the final game. But if I would combine this one blue book and this one red book, I can put them together to create some other object, in this case, just some default template test object. That leads to the next item I added to the game, which is the ability to use objects like this on other objects. So a good example is a key for a door. I've added both the mechanic that using an item is instantaneous, so when you pick up a key you don't need to know dining room key goes to dining room door. The key will just automatically use itself, similar to the original Silent Hill games. There's also the ability that I've added where you can walk up to certain doors or certain other objects and it'll prompt you with your inventory. In these cases, you're meant to pick something from your inventory to enter that door or do whatever you think needs to be done to solve that little puzzle. A small amount of time was put into narrative triggers or narrative descriptors. These are things like when you walk up to this picture frame and you press a button, it'll actually show you a little description of what you're seeing in the game. It's a little bit more of how I can give the perspective of the character you're playing as, while you as the player are exploring by yourself. In some of these cases, I've created triggers where when you walk up to them, for example in this case, I'll walk up a little bit and see a new objective appear on my HUD. The objective can be brought up at any time when you're playing, but I want to be able to push that objective on the player and say, hey, now you want to go and do this. So there's always that sense of, okay, I know what my next step is. This next little spot, when I walk up to it, it just types some more narrative text, kind of like when I was interacting with that picture frame in the other room, except in this case, it's kind of like the character's thoughts. What is the character thinking when they go into this area? There are a ton of things that I want to add to Knock, and I've got a ton of ideas that I haven't even begun to explain. Those are coming in the next few months, so I will show you those as we hit them. So if you like this video, just go ahead and hit that little thumbs up button or even subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. I do them every month where I tell you what I'm working on. I do a new game jam every month and I work on my bigger project. I also have a Patreon that you can check out at patreon.com/submattergames. Check out that description below. You can find links to everything down there. And I'm gonna go work on some games, so I will see you next month.